Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's assignment. It is the R&J Fate essay handout. It's right here at the top of the title. You're going to open it with Cami, and we are going to go ahead and fill it in. Now, you are going to be talking about, in this essay, you're not actually writing an essay, don't freak out. In this essay outline, you're going to be talking about who is responsible for Romeo and Juliet's deaths. Now, I don't want you to put Romeo and Juliet, and I don't want you to use Prince Aeschylus. Prince Aeschylus is just my example. There are a ton of really, really good people you could use instead. You could say the nurse. You could say Romeo's servant Balthazar, because he's the one that brings the news of Juliet. You could say Mercutio, because he's the one that starts the fight and, convinces Romeo to go to the party. You could say Tybalt, because he's the one that starts the fight, but the best one, I think, is definitely Friar Lawrence. I think, he's kind of the one that causes most of the problems, but, for my example, I'm going to use Prince Aeschylus. Remember, no Romeo, no Juliet, no Prince Aeschylus. Anybody else, fair game. So, characters responsible for Romeo and Juliet's death. Prince Aeschylus, reason why they're responsible. He is the ruler of Verona. And he should, can't type today, have stopped the families from fighting before it cost them their children. Alrighty. So, evidence number one. So I'm gonna say, So he's the ruler of Verona. Should have stopped from fighting before it cost them their children. Instead of saying, and he is the ruler of Verona, comma, he should have stopped. So he should have stopped the families from fighting before it cost them their children. And he is the person that banished Romeo. So, here we go. Quote number one is going to go with the family fighting. So, I'm going to go ahead and pull out that quote. So, I use the link right here. So, there's a link attached for you. I'm going to go to Act 1, Scene 1. And it's going to be like one of the last pages, because it is where the prince talks about them fighting 3 times. I'm going to use that. Let's see. We'll try page 7. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be page 6. Yes. So he enters. I'm going to use this quote right here. 3 civil brawls. Bred of an airy word by thee, all Capulet and Montague. Let's see if that copied. And I will definitely explain it. Give me just a second. Now, you are going to have to do this, guys, if you do copy and paste like I did, where you kind of have to, make it work. Alright, so here we go. My evidence says, 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word by thee, old Capulet and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens cast by their grave beseeming ornaments to wield old partisans in hands as old, cankered with peace to part your cankered hate. If you do not know what that says or what it means, hold on. Let's cite it so that we don't have to do that later. It's going to be Shakespeare. And we're going to say, whoa, here we go. So 79, 78, 78 to 85, page 14. So Act 1, Scene 1, lines, and it was 78 to 85. Okay. Alright, we've got our quote. So now I've got to explain how this shows the character's guilt. So he is the ruler of Verona, so he should have stopped the Filmies from fighting before it cost them their children. So 3 civil brawls. So 3 times you fought. So that's kind of what I am going off of when I'm explaining how this shows the character's guilt. So the prince openly admits that he allowed the Capulet and Montague families to fight in his streets before actually giving consequences. Can't spell. Without the threat of retaliation from the prince, or will not say without the threat of retaliation, without the threat of, what's another word for consequences? Let's Google it. Synonyms for consequences. Ooh, ramifications. Let's do that. Here we go. Without the threat of ramifications from the prince, the families were not going to stop fighting. If the prince had outlined the punishment for fighting sooner, it would have stopped earlier, or instead of saying earlier, before it escalated to the point of Romeo and Juliet's deaths. Alright, so the prince openly admits that he allowed the Capulet and Montague families to fight in his streets 3 times before actually giving consequences. Without the threat of ramifications from the prince, the families were not going to stop fighting. If the prince had outlined the punishment for fighting sooner, it would have stopped before it escalated to the point of Romeo and Juliet's deaths. So, we've got this quote that tells us they fought, and it's kind of like caused these ancient people to have to break up this fight. Alright. Then we're going to go to evidence number 2, which is he is the person that banished Romeo. So we are going to find the quote where he banishes Romeo. I need to actually use this side. We're going to use the traditional side when we cite. Do, 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 do. So I'm just going to highlight this. I'm going to paste it in. I gotta go back to get the line numbers. So 156, 157, 158, 159. Got too many tabs open. So 157 to 159. Lines 157 to 159. Okay. Now, next one. Explain how this quote shows the line or the character's guilt. So, the prince banishes Romeo in this moment, and even he realizes that banishment is not the best option. The prince states that showing mercy to murderers only causes more murders. This is exactly what happens to Romeo and Juliet, because the prince is not willing to enact a harsh enough punishment. So, the prince banishes Romeo in this moment, and even he realizes that this banishment is not the best option. The prince states that showing mercy to murderers only causes more murders. This is exactly what happens to Romeo and Juliet, because the prince is not willing to enact a harsh enough punishment. That's when I would talk about if the prince had killed Romeo, Juliet would have been sad, but she could have been able to marry Paris and moved on with her life. It would not have ended in Juliet's death, it would not have ended in Paris's death, and it wouldn't be kind of how it ended. It would have been sad, sure, but not this horrible, terrible tragedy that it ends up being. So, to be fair, some would say it wasn't this character's fault. A time when they tried to make things right, or a time when fate took control of Romeo and Juliet's lives was, I think my favorite example is being quarantined. Ha! Let's see. Friar John's accidental quarantine. A quote to show this. And we'll explain a little bit more. So Friar John's actual quarantine that stops him from delivering the letter. Alright, a quote to show this is, let's go over here, that's going to be in Act Act 5, Scene, 2? Yeah, so Act 5, Scene 2. So, I could not send it, here it is again, nor get a messenger to bring it to thee, so fearful were they of infection. Boop-a-doo-doo-doo. To cite it. So, I put my quotation marks. do. Shakespeare, Act 5, Scene 2, lines 14, 15, 16, no, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah. And so 14 through 17 is what we're doing. So 14 through 17. So, however, despite this incident, when they tried to make things right, or when fate took over, this character still had greater effect on Romeo and Juliet's destinies because so I'm just going to say that he allows the prince, and this is why I don't want you to use the prince. He is not a great example. He's not really a good reason or a good person to blame. So the prince allows the Capulets and Montagues to continue to cause the other family grief, which really doesn't have an effect on Romeo and Juliet's true destiny. So again, this is not a great example. This is why I don't want you to use the prince. It just isn't a great example. But it'll give you kind of an idea of what I'm looking for. So I know it's been kind of a weird video because I've been like having to look stuff up too. But I just wanted to show you guys kind of what it looks like. So you're going to choose a character. Remember, no prince, no Romeo, no Juliet. You're going to tell me the reason why they're responsible. So try to give me like 3. Think of this as like your thesis. So he is the ruler of Verona, so he should have stopped the families from fighting before it cost them their children. He's the person that banished Romeo. So we've got him openly admitting that he allowed the Capulet Montague families to fight 3 times. And he doesn't have really any punishment for the first, like, 2 times. Really 3 times. So, again, if the prince had outlined the punishment, it probably would have stopped. Then he's the one that banishes Romeo, which kind of puts the play into the tailspin that it goes into. So the prince banishes Romeo in this moment, and he realizes that the banishment is not the best option. To be fair, some would say it wasn't this character's fault. A time when they tried to make things right, or a time when fate took control, was when Friar John's accidental quarantine stops him from delivering the letter. Give you a quote for that, and then you bring me to that last reason. However, despite this incident, when they tried to make things right, or when fate took over, this character still had a greater effect on Romeo and Juliet's destinies because the prince allows them to continue to cause the other family grief, or he doesn't really stop them, or he doesn't follow through on his punishments, whatever it is. I'm going to quote to show it. So, easiest one I would say for this is probably Friar Lawrence. Because he's the one that actually marries Romeo and Juliet. He's the one that fails to truly help Juliet. And then, last but not least, he also doesn't get the letter to Romeo, nor does he get to the tomb in time. If he had been there maybe 5 minutes earlier, he could have stopped Romeo. So Friar Lawrence would be kind of the better one. He also leaves Juliet alone in the tomb with, 3 dead bodies. So, because you've got Tybalt that's rotting in there, you've got Romeo and Paris. And, he just hears a noise and dips out and leaves a 13-year-old girl alone with that. Yeah. So, Friar Lawrence would definitely be an easy one. Now, you could also say the nurse. The nurse is another easy one. So she is the one that helps Juliet marry Romeo. She's the one that helps her, solidify the marriage and, helps Romeo escape and brings letters back and forth. And then last but not least, guys, she's the one that gives Juliet, like, such terrible advice that she should marry Paris, like, changes her mind so much that, Juliet doesn't trust her enough to, like, give her, or, like, I don't know, let her know about the plan. Because if Juliet had trusted her more and let her know about the plan, maybe she could have done something to stop Romeo or intercept Romeo. But she doesn't, because Juliet doesn't trust her anymore. So there's a lot of things to think about. But I think Friar Lawrence and the nurse are probably the two easiest if you're going to talk about this stuff. But either way, go ahead, fill it out. Make sure you're citing that evidence. Remember, give me the act, the scene, and the line numbers. Alrighty, guys. So now we are going to go on to our actual introduction. So when you finish outlining, you're going to go to the introduction. You outline so you've got an idea of what to talk about in your introduction. So this is an example I wrote a few years ago. It is not perfect. This is just a really basic, like, get some ideas on paper introduction. I hope that yours is better than mine. I really do. So here we go. Let's see. Example essay. The play Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare follows the story of two lovers, Romeo and Juliet, who struggle to stay alive together despite their family's feud. The play, set in Verona, Italy, which, guys, that isn't really a good topic sentence. What am I going to be talking about? Just the play? No, I should have started with a topic sentence about who's to blame, but I didn't. So again, this is not perfect. This is just basic, get it on paper introduction. Anyways, the play, set in Verona, Italy, starts with the Capulets and Montagues feuding, and ends with the tragic deaths of Romeo, Montague, and Juliet Capulet. Despite the obvious two characters from the play, Romeo and Juliet, who could be blamed for their own deaths, there's still another character who can be held responsible for the senseless loss of life. Prince Aeschylus is most responsible for Romeo and Juliet's death because the prince does not try to stop the fighting until 3 riots have broken out. He banishes Romeo, and he allows the families to continue to attempt to undermine each other. So you can tell right here, this should have been my topic sentence. It's not a good topic sentence. This is more of like a tab, so I tell you the title, and the author, and start with the background information. Then I give you more background information. Then I give you more background information. Now, it's important that you mention that Romeo and Juliet could be blamed, but there are people who are more to blame. Or that fate could be blamed, but there are things or people that are more to blame. So, you're going to tell me this is your thesis. So-and-so is most responsible for Romeo and Juliet's death because, and then list those 3 reasons. He doesn't try to stop the fighting. He banishes Romeo. He allows the families to continue to undermine each other. Whatever it is. So, if you're doing Friar Lawrence, you could say Friar Lawrence is most responsible for Romeo and Juliet's death because he marries Romeo and Juliet. He comes up with the crazy plan for Juliet. And he does not make sure that, and he leaves Juliet in the tomb. That would be the 3 easiest ones. You could say the nurse is most responsible for Romeo and Juliet's death because the nurse helps Juliet marry Romeo. The nurse encourages Juliet to kind of like solidify the marriage and helps bring information back and forth. And then last but not least, she also gives Juliet the advice that sends her to Friar Lawrence, that sends her to this crazy plan where she's got to fake her own death. So those are some really good examples if you're looking for that. But this is a really basic, it can look like this, it's not perfect. Give me a topic sentence. Tell me, in the tragic play Romeo and Juliet, there are many people that could be blamed for the suicidal ending, whatever it is. But give me a topic sentence that's a little bit better than this, because it's not a great topic sentence. But when you're looking at yours, so yours is going to look like this, I want you to fully delete that. You should not have the brackets or the parenthesis kind of thing. So you will type your name there, you're going to type your class period, you're going to type your last name, the title, an introduction. Just come up with a title. It can be who is to blame, it could be Friar Lawrence is to blame, it could be fate is to blame, whatever it is. But I want you to come up with who is to blame, a title. But that is pretty much everything, guys. That is not really anything else you need to do. You will have time to work on this tomorrow, so make sure that you at least get that outline done today and start on the introduction, but you will have time to finish it tomorrow. Don't feel like you have to go home and do it. I think that's everything, guys. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye!